video from what I usually do. Even though I haven't uploaded that many videos on my channel, I've only ever uploaded vlogs and like 2 manga hauls, but I wanted to do something different and delve into other content that I want to do, and hopefully this will also mean that I'll be able to upload more with me having more variety to do. So in today's video, I am going to be talking about my favorite manga of 2021. I am filming this on New Year's Eve, so it is 31st of December. Hopefully I get it up before the new year, which is tomorrow, so we'll see how well I do. Basically, these are in no particular order, except for the very last manga, which is my #1 favorite read. Like, no doubt, I am very sure that this is my #1. But anyway, let's begin. So the first one I want to talk about is A White Rose in Bloom. The reason why I'm starting this one off is because I've only read 1 volume, because that is all that is out for like, I don't know how long. So I'm kind of iffy to put it on this list, but it left such a good impression on me that I decided to just put it on. So A White Rose in Bloom is Asumiko Nakamura's latest work in English. She is my favorite mangaka, so obviously I had to pick it up. This is a GL which is set in a European boarding school, and basically we have the like stone cold girl and the more outgoing girl, and it's during one holiday where they're the only 2 girls left in the boarding school, and so they develop a friendship, and obviously that will lead to a relationship later on. I really enjoyed this volume. I enjoyed it a lot more than what I was expecting. It had topics of like war and refugee mentioned. I really hope that does get further explored, because it was so interesting to see in a GL, and I was shocked when I found it, but I really did enjoy it. The relationship between these 2 seemed cute already, so I'm definitely also very excited to see how it develops. And the art is, you know, typical Asumiko Nakamura's art, but I love her art, and it's one of the reasons why she's my favorite mangaka, so no complaints there. I highly recommend this. I really hope this doesn't fall flat later on, but seeing her other works, I have high hopes for this. Continuing from Asumiko Nakamura, I obviously have to talk about her most famous work, Classmates. Now, this, I'm not exactly sure when I first read it, because I feel like I've always been attached to this series, because I first watched the movie. I fell in love with the movie and I rewatched it over and over again, and then I was like, okay, time to read the manga. I think I read it this year. I actually read the manga this year. I don't remember, but I have reread this series over and over again. I read it through scans, and then I picked up the manga when it went back in stock. This is like a huge comfort series of mine, and basically we follow these 2 characters where we have this guy who can't sing and this guy who is in a rock band, so he can't sing. And then one day he encounters him in a classroom trying to sing for like a choir or something that they have to do for like an assembly, and he offers to tutor him, and obviously that leads to a relationship forming. I think like overall this series is nothing special, but I don't know why I love it so much. I think it's the relationship. These 2, I get like butterflies when I read it because of how cute it is. It is such a good read. The art is obviously stunning. So if you haven't read it, I highly recommend. I know this manga is kind of hard to find right now, so I would recommend the movie, because the movie adapts the first volume. My only complaint is there is a really creepy teacher, and I am not a fan of him at all. He is so gross. The way he just, yeah, that's the only issue I have with this series, but overall I love the series. It's one of my favorites. Just go read if you haven't. Next up on the train of like LGBT manga, let's talk about Whisper Me, a Love Song. This is one that doesn't get talked a lot, but I have seen it being compared to Given. I'm gonna assume that's because of like the band aspects, which makes sense, but this is definitely on the fluffier side. It's a lot cuter. There is a lot less drama than Given, which has quite a lot of drama. But I picked this up on a whim. I was like, the art looked nice, it seemed cute, I liked the designs of the characters, so I was like, let's give it a shot, and I loved it. The relationship between these two is so adorable. It includes a lot of my like favorite like tropes that, like, I don't know if you'll call it tropes, but like there's those like specific scenes in like that happens a lot in like romance manga, anime and stuff that I love, and it happens in this. So it's just like, yes, the characters are really likable. I love these two so much. If you want something that's very cute and fluffy, there is a little bit of drama, and from the third volume, which is what I have read, it seems like there is some more drama developing. I don't know how I feel about that, because I do really just love the romance, and that's my favorite part, like the fluffy parts, but I'm just hoping for the best. The art is also stunning. There is some colored pages, which, you know, I just love seeing colored pages. Like, hello. I just love this series. The art, look how cute they are. Oh, seeing this just makes me grin, and when I talk about it, when I think about it, I just get so happy. So yeah, this one isn't super popular, so you should be able to find it pretty easily. I really hope this does get more recognition. Once again, nothing crazy, but I love it. Okay, so I just realized I went on and on about this series and how much I love it without actually telling you guys what it was about. So basically, it follows this energetic freshman girl who hears her sing, and she falls head over heels for her. She is completely enamored by her, and she ends up confessing, and then she later reciprocates that love. However, they begin to realize that the love they have for each other is different kinds, and it's basically them truly figuring out their feelings. Not the greatest synopsis, but honestly, just trust me and give this a chance, because it is amazing and deserves so much more recognition. Okay, I just realized how many like LGBT manga I have in this list, but I guess I just read a lot of good ones, because continuing on is a BL, hiiii Class 2. These copies are the Korean edition. There are no English copies, but you can read this on the Lizhin app, I'm pretty sure, since it is published by them. But anyway, we follow this guy named Hiiii who has a secret crush on his best friend, and he doesn't mind keeping it a secret. He doesn't mind just not standing out compared to his best friend, who is definitely more popular. But then one day he starts hearing rumors where he starts hearing his name more. And then he finds out that there's this rumor going on that he can like, it's something like foretell like your love, or like can give you love advice. And so one day this guy comes along. This guy comes along and asks him for some love advice for his secret crush. And I think from that you can kind of guess who his secret crush is. I'm just saying, that was an awful synopsis. I do apologize, but I read this like quite early on in the year, but I fell in love with it. I like binge read the whole thing. It was so good. The relationship is so healthy. It's so wholesome. You know, I just love healthy depictions of LGBT relationships. Of course, it is in all color because it is a manhwa. I know technically it isn't a manga, but like I just really wanted to talk about it. It has been a while since I read it, but I still really love it. Where was that cute scene I just saw? But they're so cute. Like, I forgot how much like the main couple like makes me smile. It's just so cute. This is, I would say, quite a popular BL. If you're into like BL, you most likely have heard of it. If you haven't read it though, highly recommend go read it. Go do yourself a favor and read this. Next up is one that I think is quite obvious. I really enjoy. I did rave about it quite a bit in a manga haul, and from that I think you can guess what it is. It is Tokyo Revengers. I watched the anime and the ending like left me on a cliffhanger, so I went and read the whole manga. I binge read it because the chapters felt so short, and I just fell in love with this series, the characters, that I had to go pick up the Japanese volumes. And then later on there is an announcement by 7 Seas, surprisingly not Kodansha, that they are releasing omnibus prints of Tokyo Revengers. And honestly, 7 Seas is like carrying us. I swear there are so many good manga that they have been publishing. I am so excited for that. I was like screaming with joy when I saw the announcement. But I don't know, this manga in anime is quite popular obviously, so I don't know if I should really give a synopsis, but a very brief synopsis. Basically we're following, I don't have the main character, but I just chose one that had a cover I really like. So basically we're following this guy who, when he's an adult, he heard that his only girlfriend he had in middle school passed away, and he's like, oh, that's sad. And then one day he gets pushed onto a train and presumably dies, but in actuality he time travels back to when he was in middle school, and then he decides to save his girlfriend practically. Very brief, awful synopsis. If it wasn't obvious, I'm really terrible at synopsis, but honestly I don't know who hasn't at least heard of this series. It garnered quite a lot of popularity, especially after the anime. The manga, I feel like it wasn't talked as much until the anime came out, and that's when suddenly I heard everyone talking about it, everyone loving it, everyone raving it. And yeah, this is one series that I follow religiously. Like I wait for a chapter update, and once I see a chapter is out, I like read it immediately. So I do read the skins, however I will be buying the English versions alongside the Japanese just because of how much I love this series. I know I've heard people complain about like the downfall, like it's gotten dragged on and it isn't as good as it used to be, which I can kind of see, but I just love this series so much that I just don't care. If you heard some negative reviews on it, honestly just give it a shot. Give the anime a shot. The pacing and the animation's a bit weird, but give the manga, the anime, whatever, a shot and make your own opinions, and don't just follow what everyone thinks. Anyway, let's go on to another series that I fell in love with in the first volume, and that is Blue Period. This is actually the first manga I've ever annotated. Annotated, I say, means really just tapping it, but I read volume 1 and 2. Those are the only volumes I currently own, unfortunately, because the volumes get out of stock really quickly. So hopefully I can pick up volume 3 soon and continue this series because I love it. I fell in love with this series. I found it very relatable, even though I don't exactly want to pursue an art career. I found the feelings of the main character to be very relatable. The way he acts, especially in the beginning, I related a lot, and it made me cry. I've cried in volume 1 and 2. As you can see, there are the blue, which are like the sad moments, and it has one of the most memorable quotes. Like, I don't hear people talking about this quote enough. I think it's because the words are very simple. The whole thing seems very simple, but it really hit me, and it was after this I just knew I was going to love this series. And it was this page where it's basically him saying, I guess I'll just have to work until you can't tell the difference between me and a genius, that's all. And yep, I do that. I was like, yep, definitely going to love this series. I just remember I need to give a synopsis. So basically, blue period, we're following this guy who's like a delinquent technically, but he still like gets good grades and all of that, and he just assumes that he's gonna like work the 9-to-5 job, you know, like he has that ideal of, okay, just get good grades in school, get into a good university, get a well-paying job, and that's how he thinks his life is going to turn out, until one day he encounters this artwork, and he kind of just falls in love with art, painting, all of that, and he then decides that he is going to pursue art and do it as a career. And this definitely aims to a specific demographic, I would say, where you either love it or you either like hate it, because I've seen some people say it is quite boring, but I think especially if you relate to it, which I think many people can, this definitely becomes a lot more enjoyable to read if you find it relatable. Anyway, I love the main character. There is also some LGBT representation and all of that. We do have a trans character who I love. She is just honestly iconic. I just love her so much, so that's amazing. I just love the series. I think this is a very popular series, so if you haven't heard of it, I would be quite surprised, but I definitely recommend. Now, before I go on to my favorite, like number one favorite, I kind of want to talk about some of my other favorite reads, but I just don't own any physical copies of. And the first one I want to talk about is technically not a manga, it is a Chinese webcomic, and that is 19 Days. I read this and I just fell in love with it. It's super quick, it's like 2 panels each chapter, so you read it really fast, and it's just like the dynamic between the boys is so wholesome, it's so cute, it's super comedic. Basically we're following these 4 boys in middle school, and we're just kind of seeing them in their life, like the interactions with one another, but then like alongside the comedic moments there are some serious moments with it. There is talks of like gang, there's some violence, dealing with sexuality, because there are relationships in this that develop between the guys. There are 2 pairs. I love both of them. They're super cute. I know everyone who actually gives it a shot ends up like falling in love with it, so if you haven't, I highly recommend it. I think it is quite easy to find online to read, because there is no technically physical copies. There is like volume 1 which you can get. I actually did order it. It is coming in. I also ordered the 2 art books from the creator of the series, so that is coming in the mail, which you should be seeing in a future video. Next up, I want to talk about From the Red Fog. This, I'm pretty sure, is actually getting an English publication, which I'm very excited for. I did not know until I saw on TikTok where someone mentioned it to me, and they're like, oh yeah, this is actually getting published in English, and I checked and I was like, oh wait, that's so cool. I got very excited. There are very few chapters actually translated. I think there's only like 13. I binge read it all and I love it. I would say this is definitely darker, and there are some trigger warnings for like sexual assault, violence, all of that. So I would say be wary, because it is definitely on the more graphic and darker side. But I don't know why I love this series so much. I just like read it and I was like, wow, this is so good. And I was like waiting for a new chapter to get released, because it updates really slowly from the scans I've read. So I am very excited for the English publication. And if you haven't read it, because I would say it is more unknown, definitely give it a shot, or maybe just wait for the English publication. The final manga I want to talk about before I go on to my favorite read of this year is a darker manga, a very underrated one, and I think one that should be talked more about. It addresses themes and topics in our society today, especially with like misogyny, abuse, and all of that, and that is this manga. We are basically following this 14-year-old girl who had hit puberty earlier than everyone else, so basically her body became more developed, and because of that she became the center of attention of men and women and her peers, of everyone. And it seems like everyone seems to have like a reaction or feeling towards it. Like with the guys, it seems like they always like they have romantic or sexual feelings for her, whereas the girls, they feel more like inferior, or there's like jealousy. And we're basically just following this girl and her interactions with other people, and how she has to live her life with this more developed body than everyone else. And it's really depressing. I think it's definitely a read that we should be reading, but it's something that like it really attacks society today. So if you're not in the right headspace, or like you want something light, this definitely isn't one that you should be reading. I think the mangaka did a very good job. The mangaka's portrayal of like abusive families was very well done, in my opinion. We see like small interactions throughout the manga, which really indicates that she's not in a very good household, like her parents forgetting her graduation day, or the parents expecting her to start working and then financially support them, even though they've really done nothing for her. And it's like these small interactions that really build like the realism of like an abusive like family like dynamic, which I really do commend the mangaka for. We also see how like other women that the main character interacts with, we see how they are also victims of misogyny, internalized misogyny. So I think it is quite obvious that there is quite a few trigger warnings. There is talk of suicide, mention of suicide, sexual assault, harassment, all of that. So I would be wary and check the trigger warnings before actually getting into this series. So obviously this is one I'm more hesitant to recommend, in the sense that there is quite a few trigger warnings that you got to be aware of. But if you can handle and stomach it, then this is one I definitely think you should read. It is quite short. It's only 13 chapters with 2 volumes. I do want to pick up the Japanese volumes, because I don't think this will ever get printed in English. So I do want to support the mangaka and actually buy it. So I don't want to go too much into it, because I do think this is one that you should just read and experience for yourself. So yeah, highly recommend. If you can handle like the triggers in it, then yeah. So the final manga for this video, and my all-time favorite, that is Requiem of the Rose King. This has gained some more popularity, especially with the anime coming out very soon, which I'm very excited for. I cannot wait. This is a dark shoujo, so I would definitely recommend this for like if you read a lot of shonen and you want to delve into like the shoujo demographic. This is a good start. It kind of reminds me of like Yearn of the Dawn, with like the whole political aspects, but it definitely is a lot darker. There's a lot more violence, there's a lot more graphic scenes. So basically this is based on Henry VI and Richard III by William Shakespeare. I don't know how close it is to the original stories by Shakespeare because I never read them, but you don't need to read them before reading this. The mangaka does a good job of like explaining the world and introducing the characters, so you really don't need to worry about that. It is set in medieval England where there are two houses, the houses of Lancaster and houses of York, which is fighting for the right to the throne, and we are following our main character Richard, who is hiding a secret from everyone, and we see him through his like childhood all the way to like when he's like an adult. So I'm not going to spoil too much because I think this is definitely one you should just go into and read it. I will say besides from like the graphic scenes, there is also some like implied sexual assault. There is some like sexual harassment, so if that kind of thing makes you uncomfortable, I would be wary, or maybe just like check to see, because it's nothing like explicit or graphic, but there is like mention, there is implied that the character did get like sexually assaulted and all of that. But yeah, once again, the art is stunning. I think it definitely suits the theme and like the era of this story. Catsby is best boy, but I love this series. I binge read it all. It has like a lot of aspects. It has like political aspects, but then there's also like romance. There is some fantastical elements in this as well. If you haven't read this, I absolutely recommend you to go read it, because even though it has gained some more popularity, it still does not have enough popularity and it does not get talked about enough. So yeah, highly recommend this, and this is my #1 favorite read. It is actually my #1 favorite manga at the current moment. Absolutely love it, and I'm very excited for the anime, which is coming out I think like January the 10th. So yeah, that was my favorite manga reads of this year. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I did ramble a lot, it felt like, and this was completely unscripted. I just went off like my head and stuff, so sorry if my explanations were like really poor, or like I know my synopsis were awful. I definitely will try to like at least do some preparing for the synopsis if I do decide to continue doing videos like this later on. I do hope you enjoyed. Let me know what are some of your favorite reads in the comment section down below, or maybe even talk about your least favorite reads. I don't know. I wouldn't mind just like starting a conversation. If you just want to rant about or rave about like one of these series I mentioned, go ahead. I would love to talk about it, especially Requiem of the Rose King. I need more people to talk about this series with. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.